Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome today's workshop, Essential Strategies to Survive Your PhD Study. We are incredibly fortunate to have Huiyao Don, a PhD in Cybersecurity, FSIT ITMO lecturer, and research assistant, lead this session. She will cover the in-session tools, planning, common pitfalls, and strategies that are crucial for your junior PhD and for those who want to start their research career or publish really good scientific papers. So thank you for being here. Well, let's dive in.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so today's topic is about how to survive your PhD study. But before we do that, please do me a favor. If you haven't started your PhD study yet, so if you haven't started your PhD yet, and if you are a master student, please give me a reaction. And while you react to this message, let's move on. So here's a little bit information about myself. My name is pronounced as Huiyao Zhong, and I was studying in ITMO, and I graduated this summer, and I defended my thesis in September. Currently, I'm a teaching assistant at ITMO, and I'm a research assistant at St. Petersburg Research Center and the Russian Academy of Science. And my main research interests are network intrusion detection, anomaly detection, mostly in industrial control system and in vehicle network. I'm also interested in the security issues in AI, like a privacy preserving study, and also model poisoning. And I am also a regular reviewer of Springer, so I am a member of the reviewer community of Springer, and these are some of the journals I used to review for. So why I asked that question before, because what I want to say is that first, I have a really bad news. I think PhD is a very exhausting process. But the good news is like, if you haven't started, probably you don't really need it. Because let's face the fact, doing PhD means like in like 3 to 4 years, you need to consistently learn something new. And during this time, like your peers during your master study, they are like really pursuing their career and they are moving from junior to senior, probably. So I personally feel it will be more advisable if you can, for example, find a position like a research assistant or like maybe like a data scientist or some other in any other like subject, but it's like on a consultant or research role, because working in such a position will kind of let you understand whether you have the ability to continuously learn something new and whether you have the passion to do so. But if most of the people here are PhD, then I'm assuming it's too late to talk about this now. So let's move on to our main topic. So here's our agenda. First, I will kind of guide you through like how to plan your research, and there are some also useful tools. I will demonstrate how to plan your thesis and maybe some huge project from the scratch. And also we will discuss why and how to do a literature review. And lastly, so this is like based on my experience as a reviewer, like so how to handle rejection and major revision. So what is PhD anyway? So it's like it's a process like we do self-study and so to do a good research. But what is research? So I would say research is like to apply some advanced knowledge, a novel technique to solve an open problem in our field. So first we need the sorry, 1 minute. So first we need the relevance. So it must be some critical task in the field you study. And also we need novelty. So it has to be something that is brand new. Because I feel like for research, it's very different from like an industrial project. Because I feel like in industrial project, it's like if we use some existing simple method, like maybe even statistical based method, if we solve the problem, then it's fine. But for a research, it needs to be something new. Of course, it is possible. Like if you are from if you study like deep learning, then there are many methods that are dedicated to like a novel direction, like attention. There's a lot of like paper that's already going on. So it is possible that you can you can study the existing method and proposing a variant. But let's go back here. So it needs to be something novel. So you need to prove and justify that the variant you are proposing is actually a better version of the original one. So when we started, it's better to read some industrial report or literature review. So that's why I say like start with broad curiosity. And this is where you understand your field and you understand what can be due and what has been done in this field. But lastly, we need to narrow down to one direction. And this is about what you want to do and what you can do. Because PhD is a long process. So if you're working on something that you don't like, and you're gonna suffer a lot. Let me just put it this way. And also, I think this is actually not that important. But if you want to get something advisable from your peer and your supervisor, then it is best. It's the best to kind of like adjust your topic so it kind of fits your advisor's direction. And if you're working in a lab, that will be better. So you might be able to join some project. You might be get some like financial support from there, which is very important. And I would say like a roadmap is like, so for the first semester, because you just started, but I know like if we're doing PhD in ITMO, then we have KPI. So yeah, so ideally during the first semester, maybe it's possible to target something realistic. So maybe you want to have a small publication, and this can be like a comparative study or mini survey, which I will explain later. So this can be something is more like a so comparative study is more like you summarize what has been done, and you can do like an experiment based comparison. And so most of this type of paper will be accepted at a national conference, or if you are targeting core ranking conference, like a core C, it's definitely possible. So yeah, so then then you are fulfilling your KPI, and then that you probably have already learned something new. So after the first year, probably you are ready to draft your first real research paper, like targeting a good journal. And the last thing is like if you don't want to delay your defense, then it's better to plan to like finish the draft at least 6 months before your planned defense date. Because I don't know about the other school, but I think in my direction was like we had a pre-defense, and then we need some 2 months to kind of improve the thesis continuously, and then we have the final exam. And after the final exam, is we still need 2 months to defend our thesis. So if you don't want to delay this process, it's better to kind of finish it early. And then lastly, be ready to revise your plan, because at the very beginning, there are some topics that we planned and we feel this probably is something that we want to do. But later, you probably realize, oh, this is actually not for it. And one thing that we need to remember is that there are so many researchers in our field. So probably, for example, you have proposed a 3 direction for like a method, right? And it's very likely that when you move on to the second or third, some people have already done what you're planning to do. But it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You can just revise your plan. And here are some useful tools for research. So I personally feel like if you really want to do a PhD, if you really want to become a researcher, I don't think that using AI tool for everything is a good idea, because we still need to have the ability to read and summarize useful ideas from a really long article. But these are something that I kind of feel they're very they're really they're really useful, especially when we are searching for existing studies from our field. So first, this is like a add-in for the browser. If you're using Chrome or like Edge Explorer, it will work there. So basically, it will just display the ranking and like the quartile of the conference or journal. Because if you are new to this field, you probably want to learn from the expert, and you probably want to learn from the best publication. So that's why this is quite useful for screening. And this one, I kind of feel this is really like a AI-based research assistant. So typically, it's like you can enter your question. For example, I think I got this result from something like, please find research paper published in the past 5 years on multitask deep learning, which focus on soft parameter sharing method. And then I will got a relevant paper and they also have links, so it means like they are real. Because if you have done this like in ChatGPT, you probably know that ChatGPT sometimes they will create some like fake references, but these are new. But just be careful. It's better to use it as a article searching tool rather than believe it completely. Because I personally have checked some of the summary here, like the limitations, rather than stating the real limitation of the proposed method. They just simply extract some keywords from the introduction section. So if you have experience reading articles, you probably know that is not the real limitation. It's just some problem that this paper is trying to solve. So just be careful. And another thing that's coming out recently was like the Scholar Lab. So it's also like a paper searching tool. It's from Google. But I personally don't really like this one because was there some question? Oh yeah, you can also use this one. That also work. So it's like it's very similar to the one I just mentioned. Yeah. Okay, so go back here. So I personally don't really like this one because I used to use this tool to search for explainable intrusion detection paper, and it kind of give me some irrelevant result. So, and it also like it does not really have the summary. It does not provide you a summary. So I would still like recommend this one or like the one that just appear in the chat box. So now I want to kind of explain the thesis plan with a real example. So I'm sorry, this is probably quite new to you, and if you're not from like a security major, but I think the methodology are kind of the same. And also, I think this is a really good example to show how to choose an appropriate topic, not something sounds so cool but you're not familiar with. For example, let me give. So please listen to this statement. In quantum information science, the most basic concept used is qubit, which is a state of superposition. And a qubit is like a unit vector that can be represented with a linear superposition of two deterministic states, and that is 0 and 1. So, oops. If you have studied like informatics, you probably know this. And then typically when we are trying to decide, when we are trying to calculate the expectation state value, then we will have this, right? And basically the alpha and beta, they are both complex numbers and they should satisfy the normalization condition, which means the square of alpha plus the square of beta is equal to 1. And okay, finish. So if you feel what I just said is very unfamiliar and it almost sounds like I'm talking in a foreign language, then I think you already know that this topic is not for you, right? Of course, like technically, I am talking in a foreign language now if you're not from an English-spoken country, but you get my idea. So it's like the bottom line, if you really want to work in quantum cryptography, is that you are already very familiar with cryptography as a subject, and you have taken some small courses in quantum information science. Yeah, and don't worry, I'm not trying to talk about quantum informatics here. So, but for all the subject, we will start with literature review and background self-study. So we're just trying to understand like the foundation of this method, and we are also like building our knowledge base. So during this time, we should read a lot of like a literature review and find some representative research paper from there. And also we need to take some extra courses. So like to attend lectures and to join some online courses, which is more convenient. So if we're coming back to quantum cryptography, we should first understand the foundation of quantum cryptography and also quantum key distribution, because it's a little bit different from the traditional cryptography. And we also need to learn the major existing protocol because this field has been there for a while. And we also need to learn what are their practical challenges, like maybe there are noises and their hardware limitation. And this is to understand what we can do in this field. And another thing, so this is just my personal thought. I feel like if we are working in industry, it's enough if we just understand how to do it. But if we're doing a PhD, then it's better to also understand why we are doing it. So that's why, like in this example I listed, if you really want to understand the foundation, it's better to also take some courses from photonics. So because that is where everything started, right? And during this stage, we can starting to document our finding and progress. So we can probably you can keep a document to list all the key findings. And in probably a literature matrix or annotated like this is if you don't know what I'm talking about. So this is the best way to track the paper. But if you are not very familiar with it, you can probably also use Excel just to track like the method you have learned. And maybe you can probably attach a link of the paper that you find useful, because later we will come back here and refer those study. And the second stage will be baseline realization. So this stage is like just to gain some hands-on experience with the topic we're trying to working on, and maybe perform some comparative study to understand how existing methods work. So if you're coming back to quantum cryptography, probably it will be so this is the time that you really want to learn some like simulation tools like Qiskit. This is my favorite one actually. And we can, and also as I mentioned, doing a comparative study is like trying to implement a reference, like a baseline for comparison. And this is also a very good stage for you to maybe like using existing performance indicators or propose your own key performance indicators. Because later, if you want to justify the method that's proposed by you, you will use those performance indicators to just prove that your method can beat existing study, right? And also, it's a good period to kind of identify bottlenecks and vulnerabilities in the baseline setup. Because this is more like we're trying to understand how to implement our method, but it's also a very like important period for us to really make sure that like how to justify our method. So here we are still building the foundation, but I think if you have a KPI for like publication, we are already good to write a comparative study based on experiments. So so by the end of this stage, I think we should already have a working prototype or simulation of a baseline. And also we have a set of performance metrics as a reference for future work. And then we move to method design. So this will be the most time consuming one. So that's why, like I mentioned, there are two possibilities. So first, I think it would be better to just go from existing method and try to improve it based on the limitations we found from the previous two stages. So it's like coming back to our topic is supposed to be something like we kind of improve some quantum cryptographic protocol. Yeah, so it's like we're trying to propose enhancement to existing approaches. Because I think like it's kind of easier to do some enhancement rather than proposing something new. If this is yeah, and you can also justify the design based on the gap or limitation we found before. And one of the most important thing if you are studying computer science, we also kind of need to formulate the mathematical model and maybe like a theoretical analysis of our approach. So So it might be like new encoding schemes because we're in cryptography, right? And maybe like a error correction method, uh, yeah, such thing. And then say, of course, we also need experiment. So it's better to validate the proposed method through simulation, and if possible, experiment on a like quantum test bed. But if it's not there, it's fine because this is just an example. You might not need it anyway. And we need to implement the method using simulation on, if it's possible, on actual quantum hardware. And we need to compare performance against the baseline protocol. So yeah, so that's where what we have been doing in the second stage will come back again. So we need to kind of compare the method with the baseline. So here we have error rate, security under attack scenarios, because this is very important in security. And I think for other field, it's the same. So you need to understand like how the method will work in a normal situation. And you might want to also consider maybe there are some extreme situation, right? So if you are so after this stage, we are already having some like comprehensive report of the finding and empirical evaluation, and maybe after all this like method design and implementation, we will also have some idea for a practical deployment or the next research step. And if you are lucky enough, from here, you are already good to submit the first like real research paper, like to a Q1 or Q2 journal. Yes. So and if you are quite ambitious and you want to build something that is completely new, so here's a project roadmap using an example. So the topic is like a AI enhanced system to support autism diagnosis and treatment. So I do want to mention that this whole thing was actually inspired by the very short history of this ASEAN Center at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. So I met this professor before, and I was really inspired by how she built everything. Because before this center, there was really like no AI enhanced this type of intelligent autism diagnosis treatment in the whole Middle East. But now it's like the method she proposed in these studies are already using in the Qatari National Hospital. So I do find it very inspiring. So when I say roadmap, I mean like a step-by-step plan that take us from the very early research where we didn't even have the ground truth to something that can actually be used in a clinic. So first, it will be knowledge discovery. So if we are coming from, so it's like so of course, this is an AI-based research. But it's like before we build any AI, we should understand like in this kind of like cross-disciplinary research, we need to first understand what works the best in this topic. So if we are coming back to this example, what they're trying to understand is how so it's like what works the best for engaging children with ASD. So that's autism spectrum disorder. So they first conduct a literature review. Yeah, so I think we were talking about the first stage, right? So with this research article, they kind of had a comparative study on how the AI enhanced tools, especially toys, can like how children's with autism can interact with it, and also they can build their ground truth from there. And another thing that's kind of important at this stage, that's what they were doing, was like they kind of they designed an ontology, which is like a set of defined concepts, because these are something that we are going to use consistently throughout the whole project. And for example, in this one, they were discussing what counts as engagement and avoidance or joint attention. And second will be method assessment. So they start with studies using a VR classroom. So it's like an environment where they can safely and consistently present learning and social situations. And so at first it was just started with something small, and then they expand those studies into multi-site and large-scale assessment. So that means that they have several locations. So the results are more like reliable and not tied to one settings. This is actually something that's very important during PhD study. So if you want to propose a new method, it must be something that can be like generalizable. So it should be able to be applied to multiple situations. And then they have this large scale experiment. So they have more participants across the whole nation. So they can understand the differences across children, not just the averages. So the goal here is to identify the attentional phenotypes. If we put it in simple term, it's like the different patterns for attention from different children group. So during this phase, they also kind of train and validate attention detection AI models using multimodal data, especially eye tracking. So eye tracking kind of means like they are trying to measure where someone is looking, which can be a strong indicator of attention and social focus. So I do want to mention that this technique was extremely expensive, but they started with this because this is something that's considered to be the most effective. Because at first we want to make sure that this method actually work. So the cost was not something that they were considering during this stage. And third will be deployment. So they actually bought the system. They kind of refine the system proposed here into a real clinical and run a longitudinal study, which means that they are trying to track the changes over time. This actually really matters because for ASD, for autism related behaviors, it can change over time. And so if we are coming back to computer science, if we're deploying a model, we also need to consider how to monitor the performance after deployment and how to schedule like retraining or like fine-tuning process afterwards, right? And so like this longitudinal study setup, it kind of helps them to answer practical questions such as, for example, does a children's attention really improve with specific interventions, and which robotic or VR approaches works the best for which children, and can we measure such progress consistently over time? And because now we're talking about autism, so it's like it probably is not going to be like it's like a descriptive analysis. If we develop a set of quantitative evaluation metrics, this is also relevant to all the subjects. But this was the most interesting part. So previously was trying to make sure the tracking work, and now they but mentioned that hardware. In the last phase, they try to replace it with cheaper alternatives like standard based tracking. So they were using using like trivial landmarks, like head poles and micro expressions. So the idea, of course, is not to the system, but more accessible. So we kind of understand now. So first, we kind of try to build. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Something wrong with the internet connection?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of strange. But I think we have finished the kind of like whole plan. So the idea is like if you really want to build something that is completely new, it's actually a little bit challenging for PhD study because she actually have a whole center to support everything. But if you are interested in this kind of thing, then we know that at first we can build the ground truth, and we need some relevant study to support our idea, and we also need to have develop a set of evaluation metrics to support like an ongoing method design or so. And then it's like first we want to propose something that's definitely going to work, and later we can propose something more practical and efficient. So I hope with the example where you understand how to do a research. So now it's about the research paper. So I think this is the most standard structure. So we first have introduction. So this is just like the background of the field you are studying. So we are trying to explain the relevance of the topic. And then we should shortly, then is that we can shortly discuss the gap. So, and that is the relevance of your method. And then we'll probably starting to say like in this article, we propose the blah, blah, blah method, and the main contribution and the main novelty of it is 1, 2, 3. And then we're moving on to the related works. So based on my experience, there are two ways to do it. First is like by task. For example, if I am doing multitask deep learning for network security, then maybe like first I want to explain how this method can help with traffic classification plus anomaly detection to detect zero attack. And in the second topic, I will explain how this type of like a deep learning, like multitask deep learning, can perform security tasks with traffic analysis simultaneously. And in the third task, I can probably discuss how this whole framework can help with data imbalance issue. So this is one method. And the other one is more, is like to based on like time manner. So supposing we are doing something like deep learning and machine learning for one domain, then maybe we want to start with the basic statistical method and then move on to the classic machine learning method. And then we move on to deep learning. And yes, and later probably you want to propose some like even new ideas like self-supervised learning or like the combination with maybe like I don't know, maybe like a LM, something like that. And the method will be like the main section. So my suggestion for computer science related major is like at first it's better to include a graph to explain the whole workflow. So supposing we are doing something based on machine learning, then definitely we have feature engineering and we have some other like feature processing method. And these are mainly something that's not so relevant, and these are just preparation. So with such graph, you can just say, oh, we have used some existing method for blah, blah, blah. And then you spend the main, like you spend most of the pages for in this section to describe the method that you are proposing. And the result is just the evaluation. So again, coming back to if you are from computer science major, it is advisable that you can include a comparison with existing study that use similar method. You don't need to include it, but trust me, if you're submitting this to a scientific journal, they will ask you to include it anyway. And the discussion, so what is this session about? So this is something that is not really empirical evaluation based, but this is also something that can support and justify your method. So if we're doing deep learning based, then here we probably should discuss the, for example, efficiency of this method and like low latency. And then we need to kind of discuss the deployment because we want to prove that this is something that that is actually practical. And of course, we also need to include a future direction. So just do it in a way like you are really gonna do some further research in those directions. So treat those seriously, please. And when you are drafting this article, it's better to already keep some potential publication venues in your mind. Because I personally feel like different publishers, they actually have different requirements. So it's better to select some journals ahead of time. And it's also very good practice to draft an outline. So I personally, usually it's like I will draft an outline and will plan for the topics that will be included in each section. And then I will probably send this outline to my senior colleagues or like my supervisor. And once they approve it, then I can move on. Because when you first starting to draft a real research article, it's very important to get some advice because they might propose something advisable. Yeah. And and the last thing, so as I mentioned, I personally I'm very against of like using GPT purely for like paper summarizing and writing. But if you're already having a draft, I think now is a good time for you to use GPT for styling. Like some like I personally I like to misuse like I already have a lot of linguistic error because I kind of like misuse like some words from British style English or like American English. So it's better to correctly hear. And also, I would really suggest you to use GPT for styling if you're submitting to an IEEE transaction or IEEE magazine because they are really expecting a certain writing style. So you can probably use something like this, like especially following the writing style of paper found in IEEE transaction of ITS. So this is quite important. But I think like for other publishers, it's not that important. But for IEEE, they will actually return your submission because they feel like your style is so different from what they're expecting. Okay, so here are some publication venues that you can use because during the PhD, we need some easy and fast option to fulfill our KPI, but we also want to do something that's really good to build our reputation as a researcher. So, so these are some things like national or like some international conference that are not that hard to be accepted. And if you want to submit to something really good, you can check this website. So maybe you want to submit to if it's like A star and A, they are really good. And also there are some journals for your reference. So it should meet the requirement from each. I think this is a journal from HSE, and this is just ITMO conference journal. And this journal is a proceeding of my lab. So if you want to submit something here, you can let me know. So and this another Russian journal. This one is dedicated to informatics and computer vision. So I think these are some options that are not that hard to be accepted. But if you're really searching for something good, it's better to search Scopus. So I really recommend this platform because you can choose topic and specify the quartile you are trying to target. For example, you can choose artificial intelligence, and if you're not that confident in your work, you can still choose like quarter 2 or quarter 3. Or if you're really confident, you can choose like quarter 1 and choose the appropriate one. So and then let's move on to literature review. I feel like a lot of try are very against this idea to write a literature review during your study, but I feel like doing a literature review is like to give some credit of what you have learned in the self-study phase, because now it's like after you have done some study and like reading, you already know what has been done in this field. And let's imagine if we're having a 4-chapter thesis, I mean your dissertation, you will dedicate one chapter to the literature review and problem formulation anyway. So why not submit an article and to fulfill a KPI? And how to do a survey? So first we need to use databases. So I think using Google Scholar will be the most safest option. It is also okay to just search for relevant articles on publishers like IEEE or Springer. But the problem is like you might miss something because a lot of really like top conferences, they are probably not from this like a major platform. They might be on ACM or like other stuff. So it's better to use Google Scholar. That will be the safest one. And if you are searching for any type of topic, especially in computer science, there's going to be like thousands of paper. So you want to perform some screening because in a real literature review, we just need probably around 150 paper. So you want to kind of screen it based on their relevance and the quartile of their platform. And then it's like you need to summarize the key finding and categorize everything and identify the major research trend and the open challenges and the future direction. The problem with doing a full survey paper is that it's actually extremely hard to manage an article that is around 20 words. Like my supervisor, he was joking. He said, if you want to work in this field, it's better to do literature review because now you don't know what people are doing. But it's not clear to do a really decent one because you don't know what people are doing. And that's why wonderful thought. So if we just started, then it's better to start with a short survey for conference because look at the whole structure of a full one, you will notice something that's very hard for junior researcher to manage. For example, we have a section that is dedicated to the like summary papers we're trying to review. So, but then we have another section, so the comparative analysis, and this is purely dedicated to compare the method that has been mentioned here. So to put it in a simple term, we are trying to refer the same content. Yeah, I guess the internet refused to work properly because this is Sunday. Uh, yeah, so yeah, I just mentioned. So the first thing is like it's very hard to manage the comparative analysis. And the second thing is like so typically in this section we need to discuss the critical some critical problem in different domains. And if we started, it's very hard to make this section comprehensive. So that's why I think to write a short survey will be more practical because this typically is only like around 5,000 words. So I think it's easier to manage. And typically, when we are trying to do this key method overview, we will include the comparative summary inside of the approaches we are trying to summarize. So, and in this way, we don't need to consider the how to write redundant content without showing that it's a redundancy problem. And for the future work part, okay, so so for a short survey, because we don't have that many pages to write, we can just summarize like one or two critical gaps. And I think if you are choosing this topic, then it won't be very challenging for you because you should be able to identify some of the critical problem in the field. And I also include a kind of like a comparison. So yeah, so we will share these slides later, so you can check them later. But one thing that I do want to mention is that for a short survey, there's one thing that's very important. It's like now we don't need that many citation. So we want to make sure like this very limited amount of papers cited are from the top value. So this is not about discrimination, but it just if we're doing a short review, then all the method we are including should be most representative. So better method that's from like the quarter two journals or from top conferences. I think it's actually a very scary topic. So why is the paper being rejected? I personally don't have, so my research article has never been rejected, but my survey did go rejected because I want our full bad decision because at first it was rejected, but because you pressing challenges in critical domain, which I really didn't. And then I kind of enhanced it and add a lot of discussion and then submit it to another journal. And then they asked me to do a major revision because paper is too long. They mentioned it's like a book and then it cannot be reviewed in the current form. And finally, when I finished my revision, they told me, actually, while you were revising your paper, we accept something that's very similar. So now we've got no choice but to reject it. Now this paper has been accepted somewhere else, and it's my most cited work. But I find I find the whole process very interesting, and that's why I mentioned it's better to do a short survey first, and then maybe after you have published one or two research articles, then it's like you already have a full understanding of the field. Then you can call. Let's move on. So I think we just talk about the second point, right? Just like the topic does not fit. And the third one was the one I just mentioned. So we need to have some comparative analysis with existing study that, so they probably use like similar method and they're from the same, let's say they are like studying the same task. So it just to justify your method. But actually, I think this one is not very serious because the most serious thing is the fourth one. So it's like compare your method with cherry-picked method. So what does that mean? Supposing I am submitting a paper on deep learning application and I use the feed-forward neural network, then obviously it will not be able to really beat some like hybrid architecture using convolutional neural network and self-attention mechanism, right? But rather than doing something about it, I decided that I'm gonna compare with those studies that use like basic model, for example, logistic regression or support vector machine. And because a lot of reviewers that are reviewing your article, they have already published something on this journal or on journal that are even better than this one. So it's like they have like a better knowledge base. And if someone is doing like this cherry picking, then like the reviewer will know like instantly. And this is actually a very bad thing. I think it will just lead to like instant rejection because it just shows like there are some bias. And then it's like poor presentation. Sometimes this can also be an issue. For example, if we are doing like visualization on okay, let me think. Okay, confusion matrix, because we know that the default layout was like the graph was extremely huge with really small font. But this is something that can be easily adjusted. So just like to add like a little bit code in your right. So it's just like we need to specify the font, for example. And if you're not even willing to put that effort in the presentation, it will also lead like a bad impression to the reviewer. And the last one, this is kind of interesting because even I had this mistake. Like we want to put a lot of fancy word in the title and in the abstract. But the problem is like there might be a mismatch. So if we mention something, if we promise something, it's better to do it. Like if we said it's going to be a lightweight but effective model, we need to compare with heavy model to prove that we have competitive performance, but we also have like a much less parameters in the model. And if we mention that it's going to be fast, it's like a low latency, but we don't really evaluate the response time under GPU or CPU, or we don't calculate the flops, like the computational complexity of the model, then it also looks really bad. And yes, like interpretability, it's like if we mention this, but we never show any like maybe like visualization, or we never evaluate the fairness of the interpretability technique, then it also looks really bad. Like I don't like to reject people because I feel like I was also a junior researcher once. But recently I got this paper. It was like ensemble deep learning for medical image classification. And what I noticed that they consider a simple concatenation a way of feature fusion. And also I noticed that the result was like the result after they applied the ensemble learning was like it was even lower than the single model because they have like a vision transformer in it. So it's like I need to reject this paper because it sounds like he don't know what he's doing. Yeah. So what can we learn from rejection? First is I just don't take it personal. I think there are some biased comments actually, but it's like if we are under a major revision, then we can still argue with the editor-in-chief. But if it's already rejection, then halas, that's the end. Like we can't really do anything. So we just need to address all the objective comments we got and really improve the model, improve the method and the whole presentation and submit somewhere else. So it's also a good practice to submit if you have a really good idea, because if the method is really novel, then the reviewer will give you a chance to revise it, even like even some part of the writing was kind of off. Yeah, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of things to be done, but there are so many researchers and people are doing things. So typically we got a good idea when we are reading a nice paper and we feel, oh, this is something that can be twisted and applied to our domain. And just remember, there are 100,000 of people reading the same paper at the same time, and they might get the same inspiration. And lastly, it will be do some research, because supposing the journal has already accepted really similar paper in the last volume, then it's not likely that they will accept yours, because I think like most of the reputational journal, they will avoid to publish something that's so similar in such a short period of time. Yes. So lastly, this is some like a personal thought of mine. So first, I would say, okay, actually, we are already very close to the end of the first semester, but it's better to plan your plan because we need to have some easy and fast way to fulfill the KPI for a successful graduation. And we also need to think about the career as a researcher or a professor after your graduation. So you also need something that's really good but challenging to build your reputation as a scholar. And also about conference presentation, I would really like to cite one of the quote from my previous colleague. So I was working as a data scientist, and there's once I need to do a technical presentation for a potential client, and I was really worried because I feel like it's very hard to make my speech interesting because I like a lot of technical stuff are quite boring anyway. But this guy he just said, I don't think you need to make your speech interesting. You just need to make people interested. So don't think too much about the presentation, like how to present our work, because if the topic is really good, if this is a really hot domain and your method somehow it aligns with people's interest, then I think there are some even professors they will approach you and kind of discuss your work. So don't worry and don't think too much about like how to make it engaging, how to make it interesting. Like yeah. And also the third one, uh, probably is not a very good thing to be included in this video. But so yeah, so why is it like a network for international collaboration? Because when you have authors from different institutions from different nations, it's it will be easier for this paper to be accepted. So this is actually an example from my father, who was a researcher in petroleum engineering. So he had a really hard time when he wanted to publish on IEEE because the university he was working for was under sanction in US. But later, things actually changed because one of his students moved to Cambridge. So now it's like he have a co-author from UK, and now it's like his paper is getting accepted at IEEE again. So, actually, this is some. I'm not trying to talk about, but this is something that's more practical. So yeah, so it's better to consider international collaboration. So this is for it just to make your life easier. And also to collaborate with these type of people, it can also bring you new opportunities like doing a research visit or short lectures at other institutions. Like in China, we have a saying, so it's like everything is very easy to arrange as long as you know how. So in conferences and during all type of like a conversation when you are able to meet international scholar, it's better to find people that are so it's better to find right person. Like supposing the professor they own a lab or like a or it's like a university that are open to international uh visitors, then you can definitely discuss this type of opportunities. Yes, so that's the last slide, and thank you so much for your attention, and sorry for this bad connection. Yeah, so now if you have some question you can ask.
Thank you so much. I have one question, and probably it's worth to speak about it. How long have you been doing your research and scholarship in general?
uh well, like theoretically it was like 3 years. uh but like because like what do you mean?
I mean that lots of people, lots of students just have started and just only think about to how to start their research career. And it worth to mention that how much efforts and how much time it requires for in order to achieve good results as a scholar.
Okay. uh well, I think actually I got my first Q1 publication actually published was like after 3 semesters. So actually, I think it really depends on people because before I start my PhD study, I was already working in a role where I was able to do some research. So I kind of already have some experience in this. So that's why I mentioned like it's probably advisable if you haven't started your PhD, then it will be better to find a research-based role just to know like whether this is for you. Because if it's 4 years, then I think you still have some time to build your skills. But if it's like 3 years, it is really short and there's a lot of KPIs. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. More questions, please?
Yes. Or should I turn on my so I can probably turn on my camera so people actually
Yeah,
feel like they're chatting.
yeah, we can see you. It works good.
Okay. And also I think we can share the link of the folder. Do you have it now? Or maybe like let me share it somehow.
You can put it in the chat, and then we'll attach it to the video recording also
Okay.
for
Okay,
those
cool.
who will watch this in asynchronous mode, you know.
Okay. Okay, then let me okay, if people are really shy of like speaking up, then please type your question in the chat box. And now let me share my screen. So I'll explain what is included in this folder. So first, here is the journal list. And I think, so it have all the, oh, no, not this one, sorry. So take this one, for example. It have the subject and the title of that journal. So if you want to search, it's also good to search it here. Why I include Springer here? Because while I was reviewing, I kind of noticed that people the papers submitted in Springer, actually they are not as good as the one in elsewhere. But which also means that this is an advantage for junior researchers because maybe our paper will have better chances to be accepted as Springer. Yes. So this is just for like journal searching. And previously I had some slides that was dedicated to how to plan your literature review. And if you want to plan one also, so here are two examples that I found really good because okay, I mean actually the topic might not be your topic, but the way they present it, and they also use like really good graphs like this one, and I kind of feel like it was very clear because it's important to have some really good graphs in a survey paper because just imagine like who want to sit there to read an article with over 20,000 words with no graph. So yeah, so just have a little bit of empathy here. And here are some like references for short survey too. And please remember that these papers are already published in a conference proceeding, which means that these type of conference, they do accept journal. They do accept like a review. So if you want to try to submit a short survey for a conference, this will be some good, these are some really good platform. And these are some examples that you can follow. So you can see that they're actually quite short. And this one is even shorter because he actually used a lot of like visual presentation here. So yeah, you can use this type of, you can use them as a reference. And another thing, so this is actually from my work, so you might find them not so appealing, but I think it's if you haven't present anything at a conference, you can use them as an example. So this one is for research paper that we were presenting. So if your method have a lot of math formula, it's better to avoid them. So it's better to just keep it visual because yeah, so just to keep people engaged. And if you don't know how to present a mini survey, I also have an example. Because actually this is also one of my work, but I cannot share this article for now, unfortunately, because it has not been published yet. But if you wanna consider submitting a short survey to a conference and you don't know how to present it. I think this is also I think it's a good example because it actually got really high. It got some like really positive comment from from other professors. So probably you can check this one too. So yes. So do we have any questions? You can type if you're too shy to speak. Oh, I don't know actually.
I will answer. We will publish the video recording on the YouTube channel and probably on the RootTube and VK video channel of IT Space Community. So just you can go to the uh, Telegram channel or VK channel, and under the post you can find links to the video hostings. So uh, there you can find the recordings of all really good uh, uh, meetups and workshops, including this with Huiyao Dawn that we have today. It will require a couple of days, I think, to uh, process the recording. So the next week you will definitely find this recording on the channel.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it was helpful because I think like the topic, I mean, like the example I gave was very specific, and I'm sorry for that. But I think like the method can be applied to any like disciplines. So I hope you find it useful.
Yeah, definitely was really good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today with us. And if you have no question left, then we can end our workshop.
Yes, and maybe like later, let's share this folder with the pub with the video, so I think people can.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Wait, research. Oh wow, that's a very good question. So for research paper, it actually depends on the journal you are sending to. For example, like my own paper, I was publishing at Future Generation Computer System. So these are like wait, how can I? Oh yeah. So basically, you will get one major revision and one minor revision, and that's gonna take around 8 months. Because, but now that we are talking about a journal with an impact factor around 8, so it is a little bit hard. And there was this Internet of Things, so that one was like it have an impact factor of 6, and this was much shorter. That was only 6 months. And I think the best research article I have published, so there was like this knowledge-based system, and that one it actually take a year, and I got 3 major revision. So it's kind of interesting because I am Chinese, so we have some places to discuss the different venue. So it was rumored widely that the knowledge-based system will never reject you directly if you have like a Chinese author in it. But is it really like a good thing? I don't know, because I personally have go through like 3 major revision, and every time they ask you to propose something new. So it was finally accepted, and this journal you have really high impact factor. And if you can publish there, it's gonna be good. But the problem is like it's already a new paper and it was really exhausting. And if it's for like a Springer based journal, those are like easier, and I think it's definitely gonna be faster because I know every time I got like a invitation to review there, they only give me like 10 to 20 days. So I think it can take shorter. So probably like only 3 months it might get published if you are interested in that. Yeah, so this was the journal. So if you have some Chinese colleague, you might want to submit it here because this is a really, really, really good journal. And if you can publish there, it's very good for the reputation for you as a scholar. Yep. Just be ready to spend like 1 year on it and wait for several major revision. Okay. So, uh, actually, this is a question for you. You don't need to answer me. It's like, how junior are you? So that's actually, that actually matters a lot. So if this is really like your first article, and also you need to read to kind of compare your method. If you feel like this work is not good enough, so in my slides, there's one slide was like including some like Russian journals, right? So you might want to consider them first, because just to have some fast publication to fulfill your KPI and also to build some confidence. But if you but if you think this work is okay, then maybe let's do this one. So because this journal, I have been reviewing it a lot. So this is kind of like a borderline between quarter 1 and quarter 2. And so this one is like, you review really fast, because typically it's like they only give me like probably 10 days. And if I postpone it, then they will keep sending me reminders. So I just have no choice but to review it. So yeah, so and for this one, it's because it's really fast. Just one thing. So if you want to submit it to a quarter 1, then this might not be a safe one, because it's like a really like it was kind of like have some fluctuation of the impact factor. So it can be quarter 1 or quarter 2. But if you want to find a balance between like supposing you have this work as a junior researcher and you want to publish in a decent venue, then this type of journal will be good. So I think they have an impact factor around 3. So that's not amazing, but it's still good. Yes. Previously, we had a question of the time that you spend from literature review. That's going to be really long, because I started to write my literature review when I was really like a junior researcher. So that one actually take 2 years to get it finally published. I think now it's going to be easier. And also it depends on like where you're going to publish it. So I do want to mention that, of course, we want to target quarter 1, but a literature review is a literature review. Means like if the topic is relevant and you have some good suggestion in it, people are going to read it anyway. So it might be a good choice to submit to a quarter 1 or quarter 3. Or it's like if your lab or your supervisor, they have the fund for open access publication, you can consider MDPI, because it's okay. Of course, like there's like they have some really bad reputation, but as I said, a literature review is a literature review, and people are gonna read it anyway. Yes. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think this is the end of our great workshop. So see you at the AT space, and let's stay in touch. Bye bye.
Okay, so thank you for organizing this. Bye bye.